All right, welcome to Semper Sometimes with Benny. So tonight I got Brandon on with us. A little bit of backstory. I like most of my episodes. I have no idea who the hell he is. He is somebody that I just met on Instagram. This time met him through the Marine Rapper. The Marine Rapper had him on a live feed. And he just started talking about his story. And, me being me, just sitting at work, listening to it a little bit, was captivated by all the words and everything that he was talking about. And then I started, creeping on his Instagram, looking back at him, looking at his business, looking at his all of his stuff and looking at what's going on. And then I saw another Instagram live with another mutual friend of ours, Claudia. You guys were doing that, and then I popped on that one, and again captivated by his words and everything that he was going through in his story. So I figured, hey, why not get him on the podcast? Why not talk to him about everything going on in his life? So I'm not going to ruin that because it's not my job to. My job to is to ask you questions so you could tell us your story. So without further ado, Brandon, welcome.
Benny, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to have you here, man. And that's the best part about this. We were just talking before we started just about like why I started this and everything. And I love the fact that it's like every week I meet 1 to 2 new people across the world. Like it's awesome. I meet new people, I have new conversations, or it seems like kind of like the old conversation because especially when you put 2 Marines together, it's like we've known each other forever. Um,
Yeah.
so I really want to just start off with if I were to ask you the question, who the heck is Brandon? What would you say? Like who sum you up? I know you're a father. We were just talking about that, but like who as a whole for somebody, if they were to pick up a book right now, like what would be in that book?
I'm a man trying to be a better man, a better husband, a better father, uh, better brother, better son, better friend.
Mm.
Um, and I mean that really does kind of sum it up right there. I mean, we like you said, we both served in Marine Corps. I left for boot camp 4 days after graduating high school.
Oh wow.
Um, well, I mean, it was really like that summer I was away at boot camp, man. I had friends were in one or two categories for me. They either died or they went to jail.
Oh
And
shit.
undoubtedly, I would have been in one of those two categories most likely. So it was um, undoubtedly best mistake, best choice.
The best
I
mistake.
yeah. Well, hey, maybe Freudian slip there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, best decision I made in my life because I am still in contact with a lot of guys that I served with, and uh, yeah, they're some of the best guys I ever met in my life for sure.
That's awesome.
Been there for me when times were down,
Yeah.
and there to help me celebrate when times are good too. After I got out, I did 4 years as a machine gunner. The first 2 years with anti-terrorism and just a fleet line company after that. After I got out, I found my way into personal training. I've been doing that now. This is my 20th year as a professional
Oh
coach,
wow.
fitness trainer. And full-time gig for me. It's not, a lot of people, it's a side hustle, but it is, it really helping people connect with their physicality and find out what they are physically capable of is just one of it is, man, it's seeing the accomplishments people make. It powerful is, all I can really say there. So yeah, it's my 20th year doing that. My wife and I have owned a supplement company for 10 years now. We launched that in 2011. And I always like to stress we own, it's not a multi-level marketing company, which there is nothing wrong with that. Like I appreciate the hustle, but it is, we are in charge. We are in control of the products we carry. We put these products together. It's not somebody else's product we're selling. Um, and that kind of sums up who I am and what I do. You have any specific questions on any of that?
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, if you don't mind me asking, if you don't mind getting into it, what was going on in high school that you said you lost all these friends and all these friends went to jail? Like, is it just like kind of the area you grew up in? Is it like what was going on in life that kind of was going on? Like what you and
Yeah.
also what led you to the Marine Corps?
So I grew up just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
There's, same kind of drug problems that were happening, in every major city and spreading out into the suburbs and throughout the 90s. And um, I don't want to paint this picture that my childhood was horrible, because there were definitely people that had it worse. But my dad wasn't the best guy. My parents got divorced when I was young, and I had some issues with my mom, and she is fantastic now. But when I was our relationship, I should say, is fantastic now, because it's unfair for me to put it all on her. But I ended up leaving her and going, and I wanted to live with my dad, but I ended up growing up with his parents. So I lived with my grandparents, and his dad was a Marine. He was a machine gunner in World War II.
Oh wow.
So when I was, and not only that, but like we're talking Depression era, East Coast Italian people, right? And so when I was 15 years old, complaining about having to cut the grass or whatever, do chores around the house, when he was, I think it was when he was 14, and it was a common thing at that time, he forged his documents. So he joined the Marine Corps at 14, and he was overseas. So he'd be like, yeah, I understand that's tough. You know what I was doing when I was your age? And so I was like, what am I got to complain about?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got the, I wouldn't have called it a benefit at the time, but the benefit of
That hard
just
love.
having, yeah. And having that model of masculinity and manhood there. And then, so moving up through high school, I wasn't the best at school. I'm not going to say I was dumb, because it's not true,
Yeah.
but I wasn't the best in school. And, my grandfather, we want to talk about a rough childhood. He did have one. So he would tell me about like what it did for him. And so I was like, all right, yeah, I'm going to do that. So yeah, signed up the summer before my senior year, and then spent that year in the delayed entry program, and then June 12th, 1996, man, shipped out.
Wow, bro, I was
And
6 years old, man. Bro, and I'll tell you this, man, I did not think you were, bro, you, I guess maybe it's your supplements or maybe it's what you're doing in the gym, but I didn't think you were that much older than me.
44, man. Yeah,
Wow.
clean living. It is. I swear by it. It's more than exercise, man. It's and to that. So my mom's grandmother, I just lost my last grandparent about a month ago.
Oh wow.
And she was an amazing woman. Like, whenever we went to her house, like, we were always having baked chicken or fish and vegetables. Like, she was just ate clean. My brother wrote her obituary.
Yeah.
And he wrote in there that she abstained from vices almost always, and it was true. She was into her 80s. She worked with Meals on Wheels,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which delivers meals to senior citizens. So at a point in her life, she had a personal trainer into her late 80s, right? Wow. So there was a point in her life where she was delivering meals to people 20 years younger than her, because they couldn't get up, get out, and get the food, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so she just kind of modeled health and fitness. And a true story, man. People don't believe me when I say this. I said this at her eulogy too. When she was she spent some time in an old folks home, retirement home. There was a lift assist chair there.
Yeah.
She broke it because she thought it was to help assist her in doing squats. Right. She was just always like, I'm going to make this body work. I'm going to make this body work. Yeah. So
that's awesome, man.
Just her whole just idea about, like, the goal is to be active and make sure this body works,
bro,
to be of service to other people.
Bro, that's like talking about that, man. Like my grandmother, bro, dude, same way, man. Like I can't catch her during the week. I call her and she doesn't answer the phone. And then I get all worried because she lives in Vermont. And I remember there was like a 2 week span where me, my dad, my brother, like no one could get a hold of her. So my wife jokingly was like, it's Wednesday. Isn't she over at the McDonald's hanging out with her friends? And we were like, yeah, I guess. So I called McDonald's in Middlebury, Vermont. And I'm like, listen, man, mom, this is probably a really random question, but I was like, is Leola there? She's like, oh yeah, she's over there playing rummy with all of her friends. So I'm like, can you put her on the phones? I'm like, grandma, we haven't heard from you. My grandmother, she's been alone. I don't know how long. My grandparents are divorced, but she had a husband, and he passed on. But dude, she helps mentally handicapped children. She has there's a 40-year-old man that lives in her town, that can't walk. He can't talk. He doesn't he's just an older man who has mental illnesses. So she does everything. She cleans his house. She clothes him. She buys him groceries. She'll pick people up like she's a taxi service, but she doesn't charge them anything. She'll bring them to church. She'll bring them home from church. Like, bro, the amount of things that my grandma, like, she's always doing something. And then I called the McDonald's. I'm like, yo, I'm like, grandma, where are you? And she's like, I'm at McDonald's. I'm like, but grandma, we haven't heard from you in weeks. She's like, oh, I've been so busy. She's like, if I'm not here, I'm here. And we're all worried. And she's like, you don't got to worry about me. Just relax. Like, I'm good. And it's just awesome to know. And that's the thing that's crazy about it, is just that, like, to look at those generations compared to now, and it's, I'm not saying those people aren't here no more, but you could definitely see a difference between the upbringing and people, and just
Yeah,
the
man.
the way that people are living and the way that people are talking to each other, and health and all that stuff is crazy. But so what so besides, so you get in the Marine Corps, what was it that made you decide that, like, hey, I'm going to open up, start doing this personal training thing? And like, how did all that begin?
That's a great question, man. When I got out, um, I had some plans for what I wanted to do. A pretty typical path for getting out of the Marine Corps, especially infantry, is going into law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I thought about doing some security, and your contracting was for a lot of guys for doing that. And I started going to school. I didn't want to go back to Pittsburgh. I had a buddy who was from Iowa. He didn't want to go back there. So the fast company first unit we were with was out of Norfolk. So we went there, started going to Tidewater Community College there. And how long you been out, Benny?
So I'm still I'm in the reserves.
Oh,
I
okay.
just
All
got
right.
off active duty. So I'm currently in the reserve program. Just doing that. I am in the midst of possibly getting out, not getting out. I'm in a weird stage of life right now. So I don't know.
Well, well, I'll say, so there was this, you may have gone through this at some point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I remember, you're in great shape when you're in, like,
Yeah.
you got to exercise when you're active duty. Um, I remember getting out and, like, was drinking a beer, and I was kind of like, looking in the mirror. I was like, I'm keeping this. I guess I'm kind of a natural athlete, thinking that. And then, like, 6 months later, we had a party, and this tell you how old I am again. Uh, had to get the pictures developed, right? So I'm flipping through these pictures, and I flip, and there's some guy with a crazy hat on, a fat guy pouring beer out of a keg, and I was like, "Who's that fat dude?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" So after 6 months, I didn't even notice how much weight I'd put on until I saw it in a picture,
Yeah.
right? So I went and joined the YMCA the next day. Actually got a job swiping cards at the front desk so I could get a free membership, right? And I started talking to some of the trainers there, because it was the first time in my life I'd really been out of shape. And um, this is when functional fitness was really popular, and I just was really lucky to have these guys be like, "Look, squat, hinge, push, pull, lunge, like, these are the things you get stronger at, and then it's strength and conditioning. You throw the other stuff, the sport specific stuff, whatever you want to do, on
Yeah.
top." And at that time, I was boxing actively. I was playing a little bit of rugby and stuff like that. But or that's what I was getting back into. So, like, I was like going through that process and trying it on my own at first and it not working, and then getting information from these guys that just didn't make it easy, right? Because it's still hard work, but made it much simpler. Like, remove all that bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you don't need this to be like G-rated, right?
No, you're good.
Okay, I figured as much. So removing all the bullshit and this is what works. Stick to this. Work hard in this, right? So after that, me and another buddy I was in with, we looked up different certifications. Again, we were in Norfolk, found it was in Elizabeth City, I think, at a Gold. So we had to drive down, get a hotel room, and we had to study up for it beforehand. But then it was really like a weekend course, right?
Yeah.
Which is I wouldn't say it qualified me, but it got places to look at me and start doing the job. And then as I got into training, again, I got to work under some good guys that made me, mentored me in the first couple of years and made me a good trainer.
Got you. So did you know your wife, or had you met her later on in life?
All right. So I'm gonna first tell you that her and I have been together for 20 years. Okay.
Okay.
And I say that because the way I met her was she hired me as a personal trainer. So I always stress that we've been together 20 years, because if I just say, yeah, she hired me as a trainer, that's how I met my wife, that can come across as kind of scummy. But so she used to give me money and do what I said, and I messed that up a long time ago, man. But I was working at Bally's, and she had joined there, and I was her trainer for a couple of months, and then I left there, went to work for a company called Lifetime Fitness, and I kind of had an attraction to her when I was training her, but kept the professional distance, right? And then when I was in a separate gym, we reconnected, and kind of took off from there.
That's awesome, man. So and then how did you get into the supplement business? That was another venture later on.
Yeah. So it's roundabout, like the same as anybody's. It's just this weird, really happenstance kind of story. So in the same time that I've been in training and health and fitness, my wife has worked in the salon and beauty industry. And for a lot of that time, she was like the liaison between salons and brands. And she got to work with a company called Phytologique, which is a French company. And it was founded by this guy named Patrick Les. She got mentored by Patrick, and he was the first guy in the 60s to start doing like botanicals and plants as hair care. So the company I was working for moved me from DC to Indianapolis. We had talked about we weren't married yet, but she moved with me. There was no market for that product. DC's different culture than Indy, right? So when we went to Indy, there was no market for her company there, for the company she was working with. So they said, we got to let you go. Now, around this same time, they had what was at the time the only hair growth vitamin really on the market. And something had changed in Atlantic trade law where they couldn't ship it to the US anymore from France. So she was like, I can get a job, or with the connections you have in fitness and supplements and, my background in this, we can launch this product. So we launched a product called Hair XT. It's a hair growth vitamin. It was the first American hair growth vitamin on the market. There's a ton of them out there now. It's a really competitive market, but we were the first one out there, and we're the best one out there. So we got into HEB. You're probably not familiar with them, but they're the big grocer down here in Texas. We got in there in 2013. It's been doing great in the beauty department there. We launched a hair growth serum. I've been using the vitamins since 2015, and started using the serum in 2017 when we launched that. Because my hair, I always say I was the victim of an unfortunate Facebook tagging, and I noticed my hair was thinning. And I never considered myself a vain guy, but when I saw that, I was like, oh man, that's not good. So that's how we got into the supplement industry, because we were able to build that business and make good relationships with
bro, it's crazy.
manufacturers.
it's crazy how it's just crazy how stuff like that happens. You know what I mean? Like at the time you're probably like, oh my God, like all this bad stuff's happening. But then at the same time, there's a light at the tunnel, and now here you are,
Yeah,
and I guarantee at the time you never thought you'd be where you're at now. Like
yeah.
that's awesome, man.
Oh,
So
not well. The sports supplement line, because I wanted to launch. I wanted to get to that point where we could launch a sports supplement line, and that was birthed from the accident I had in 2017, which I think you heard
yeah,
me talk about. Yeah,
yeah. So let's get into that.
yeah. So at the time I'm in San Antonio now. We were living downtown, like in the heart of downtown San Antonio, living in a condo there. Um, I was loading my dog up she was going through chemo treatments, and I was taking her to the vet, putting her in the back of my Jeep, and this some kid was driving his dad's truck, and he was high on ketamine, and came along and pinned me between the front of his truck and the back of my Jeep, and pushed us into the car in front of us. So it's this is where, we go back to those guys that mentored me early in my fitness career, and like I said, they were telling me, look, the Bosu ball, that stuff, it's all great, it's fun. If somebody wants to do that, fantastic, help them do that, but you've got to focus on the basics in strength and whatever is conditioning specific to what they want to do with their body: squat,
Yeah.
hinge, push, pull, lunge, all that stuff. It not only, everybody thinks bigger muscles, but it strengthens ligaments and tendons, it increases bone density, it makes you bulletproof, right? Or less injury prone, to be more realistic with that statement. So when the paramedics showed up on scene, and they saw what happened, they saw my leg, they called my wife, they told her my leg and my hip were broken. They took me to the ER, because that's, they saw the bumper, they saw all that. And when I got there, they x-rayed my leg, and no breaks. 3 severe bone bruises, right? So, I think you saw it on my live with Claudia. I showed the bumper, and it's got the
Yeah,
imprint of my
yeah.
leg on there. So I got the nickname Wolverine in the ER, because they were like, we don't know how you didn't break your leg. You've got some strong bones.
Yeah.
But it was the day
Bro, I'm
before.
I'm thinking, like, as you're telling this story, like I'm thinking that like you lost your legs. Like, because if that, like, that's my thought process, like that's what I think would happen. Like
So there's,
what was going through your mind when this was happening? Do you remember, or were you in shock? Like,
man, vividly. I My wife jokes that, when emergency situations happen like that, I go into Marine mode, right? So I got hit, and like I just remember, like, standing back, I looked back at the guy, and like the only way I can describe the way he looked is like if you're trying to make fun of someone who's too high, right? Like he was literally like swatting the birdies away from flying around his head.
wow.
Um, and I think I yelled like "what the fuck" or something at him. I walked forward, or limped forward along my Jeep, because I knew I needed to create distance. It was obvious he was high. You hear these stories about, I don't know what he was on, but he
Yeah.
wasn't right, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I couldn't stand on 2 feet, right? So I started falling back. The car that we were pushed into, there was a woman in there. She got out, and she came back, and she let me get in the back of her. It was an Explorer. She let me get in the back. And so I get in there, I check my leg, and I'm like, I can't believe, like, I had boots on. I was like, I can't believe it's not broken. Then I remember my dog's in the back of my Jeep, and you hear these stories about like people that are high, like eating dogs. Now, she was a pit bull, so she's done all right. But I got out, go to get her. There were some people there. They lay me down the sidewalk, helped me take my boot off, get my dog out. The guy tried to start the truck and take off. They pulled him out of the truck. And then I knew I needed to call my wife, right? She was working up in Austin that day. It's about an hour away. And I didn't want to alarm her, because it's already a tough drive back in traffic. So I wanted her to be calm. So first thing I did was, I was supposed to cover a CrossFit class for my buddy at 4 o'clock. So I called him to make sure I could remain calm on the phone. And he always makes fun of me for the message because I was like, "Hey Dan, I was thinking about staying calm. I wasn't thinking about what I was saying. I was like, "Hey Dan, I was just hit by a car. They're going to take me to the emergency room, so I'm not going to be able to make the class." And I hung up. He said he listened to it, just kind of looked at his phone, like wasn't sure if I was serious or not. Right. So then I was like, "All right, I can remain calm." So I called my wife and I was like, "Hey," uh, she was supposed to come back and pick up the dog from the vet after I go to a point. It's like, "Hey, Piggy's not going to go to the vet." I told her I was in a car accident. Didn't say I was hit. Said, "Piggy's not going to be at the vet. She'll be at the house. Just come straight back to the house. We'll go from there." She was like, "Okay, babe, just, be calm. I'm sure the person's having a bad day. Don't worry." I was like, "Yep. Okay. Talk to you later."
Oh shit.
So then when they loaded me up on in the gurney, put me in the ambulance. And that's when they, just as they were drugging me, the paramedic said, "Hey, I'm going to call your wife on your phone." And I remember like trying to say, "Okay, just don't tell her what happened," or something like that. But that kind of went under after that. And then she saw my number come up. She's like, "Oh, hey babe, what's up?" And she hears another person's voice. And she's like, "This is a paramedic. We're taking your husband to the emergency room, University Medical Center, blah, blah, blah." So, man, I think about that, you know, and that whole part of the situation really makes me angry. Or at the time made me angry because I hate that she went through that,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but she's an amazing woman, man. That next day my workout was 10 steps with a walker, and it was
Yeah.
a long time before I could be up and around and carry my share of the load. And she's just amazing.
Wow, man. And my thing, I'm just listening to this, is like that you were able to keep calm, call your buddy, and then call your wife, and then like try to, and that's correct. So that's awesome that you even did that. Cause I'm telling you right now, I feel like I probably wouldn't be doing that. I'd be like, oh my God. Like how did you keep
Man,
that going?
you know,
Was it the Marine Corps like training? Was it everything you've been through in life that kind of taught you to get to that point? Like, what do you think it was?
man, I would say the Marine Corps training helped, but you know, again, if we go back to like the positive influence I was able to have in my life,
Yeah.
early stages was like, just I remember like being a young man, being frustrated with something, and just getting angry, and my grandfather just being like, "Here, there's a hammer over there. Why don't you just go start smashing stuff? See what that does for you." Like just telling me like, "Hey, calm down, smartass. You've got to
Yeah.
figure a way through this." Like calling me
Yeah.
out on quit getting angry. Like, here's the situation. Who's gonna fix it, right?
Mm.
And that's not even thinking about it. Maybe that's where the I Am brand came from, right? Because that's the whole thing, is about personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Who's gonna fix this situation? It's important to have a community. It's important to have support, right? It is
Yeah.
essential to have that community and support. But even at that, who's responsible for who's in your circle? Who's responsible for who your support system is, right? It's who
Yeah.
you let in your life,
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
the truth, man. And especially as a father, as a husband, like that's the reality of it, man, is being the person who's standing there, who's gonna help your family, your children, who's the one who's gonna care for them. So now run us through that. So you said the next day couldn't even walk, like barely 10 steps. So what was the process of healing like mentally, physically, like, and your wife bearing all the things going on in the household and stuff? Like, what was the next, how long was it between recover, like fully recovered?
Well, yeah. So fully recovered is a weird. It's not an accurate
Yeah, I
concept for
feel,
this, right?
yeah.
Because look, man, I am, the the right leg is misshapen now, right?
Oh wow.
It's not grossly misshapen, but it's just, it's got some divots, and there's some muscles in there that are dead.
Mm.
You know, it's not as athletic as the left leg, but by that same account, there's part of me that are more for having gone through the situation. You know, um, it's you know, it solidified that, you know, my wife is the right woman for me to be with.
Amen.
You know, it my circle of friends, the guys I talked about in the Marines,
Yeah.
um, we're on a text chain that is, you know, mostly inappropriate jokes and calling each other shitheads and stuff like that,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's support when needed. You know, those
Yeah.
guys were on the phone with me and my wife, you know, finding out what we needed. Some of them before certain members of my family. Not that my family was falling short; they live all over the country. They weren't able to, you know, right? So those guys are essential. And the friends that I have around here in San Antonio, you know, there was never a time during visiting hours where I was lonely when I was in the hospital there. So
Yeah.
it solidified that I am doing a lot of right things in my life. And ultimately, that's, you know, what trials do. They test what you have, what
Yeah.
you're made of. Uh, the I was in the ICU for 5 days.
Okay.
Um, the reason I was in ICU is, you know, the damage was done to the leg. It's rehabbing. The cells, all the muscle fibers were crushed.
Yeah.
So what was inside the muscle fibers had leaked out into the bloodstream, and that's so what happens is what's called creatine kinase levels in the blood shoot up, and for it was something ridiculous, like for 56 hours, my levels were 9 times what they monitor for heart failure. So that's why I was
Oh.
in ICU. They were just waiting for me to have some sort of cardiac event, which I never did.
Oh,
um,
wow.
After that, you know, I spent a few days in standard care. I was in total in the hospital after that for just a couple hours over a week. um, and my wife was with me the whole time. It just, you know, again, amazing woman. Um, After that, it was a lot of physical therapy and rehab. You know, for the first couple of weeks, I couldn't have my leg below my hip. Like I always had to be laying with my leg elevated. When I would bring it down, because the fibers weren't together, the blood was just filling the
Hmm.
leg, right? So it felt like the leg was going to explode. um, so a lot, you know, sometime in a walker, they sometime with a lot of time with crutches, you know, then used just one crutch for a little bit, uh, and then you know, gradually get back to walking, practicing it's the same principles, just the intensity had changed. From there, it was practicing squatting, practicing hinging, all that stuff. I was able to, you know, continue to move work my upper body once I could have my leg below my hip. While I was in the ICU, though, there was a point, you know, there were some doctors that were very encouraging. There was one doctor who told me, um, I understand she had good intent behind her message, but she was saying, you're never going to be that strong again. Right. And I asked her, I said, who's in charge of my healthcare? And she thought I was asking, where's the man in charge? Right. So she got kind of upset. She didn't verbalize that, but she said, I'm in charge of your care. And I said, no, you're not. Who's in charge of my care? And we went back and forth a little bit. I said, look, here's what you understand. You are an advisor. You're a consultant, however you want to look at it. I am in charge of my care. I am in charge of my care. And that's really a message I'd like to get out there to more people is you are in charge of your health and well-being. It cannot be passed off to anybody else.
Yeah. So
So
my
that's
my
the
so question for you. When this was all going on, like so before this happened, what were your like, were you big into squatting? Were you like, did you have like big numbers in there? Like, were you squatting like a decent amount before you had this accident?
so uh my the heaviest I ever squatted was 485.
Okay. So here's my question.
Before that,
You go from squatting 485 to now not being able to really walk. You can't have your leg over your hip. You have to lay in a certain way. mentally, what is going on in your head? Like, how are you like? Because in my mind, I'm thinking I went from doing all this awesome stuff. I'm a Marine. I have pride. I'm independent. And now all of a sudden, all of that's been stripped away from me. And now I have none of those things. I feel like mentally that's got to be a problem. Like,
Yeah.
were you
I
going through
mean,
anything mentally? Like, was there, like, you know what I mean?
man, anyone that tells you, yeah, I mean, of course, man, absolutely. This was right just a few months before this is when a year before this is when my wife and I decided we were going to start having a family. Um, and we actually the year and a half leading up to this, like we'd almost lost our business twice.
Oh, wow.
Um, uh, we had we had had back. I say we. She had had back to back miscarriages, and
Oh, yeah.
the second one was like 2 weeks before the accident happened. Um, so it was, and then shortly after it, she got pregnant with, my now my son. So it was, you know, and like was dealing with some shitty people that I thought were friends before all that. And there was a couple weeks, man, where you know what an old Wrangler looks like, right? It was an old Wrangler that I had. It's got that spare tire in the back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was walking around the back of the Jeep when I got hit. I had just cleared that tire. If I'd have been one step back, my rib cage would have been lined up with that tire and it would have been crushed between the front of that truck and the tire.
Yeah.
Right. So there were moments like I remember thinking, because everything got better. Like the shitty people that I thought were friends, they kind of disappeared. Business had picked back up. Some things we were dealing with melted away. Like besides like the shitty situation I was in physically, like everything else in life just started going smooth.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, and I haven't really shared this publicly before, man. So give me a minute here. um, I started thinking, did I die? Like did I not clear the tire? Like did I die on November 19th, 2017? You know? Um, but I didn't. Um, so I just remember thinking that and but then also like, well, no, I'm still here. Like I'm here for a reason. Uh uh I'm going to raise children that become good, people who contribute to society, do good things, and I'm going to continue to build a good life with the amazing wife I'm incredibly fortunate to have.
Bro, that's awesome, man. And it's so I guess my question would be in a weird way, are you are you thankful for what happened? Like, do you think it at all changed your trajectory in life? Do you think it changed your mentality? Do you look back at it and you're like, I clearly you're not, no one's thankful for a tragedy, but sometimes it's the tragedies in life that lead us to where we are.
I I'm thankful for everything I have that got me through that.
Mm,
Man, there's a side of this story that I really want to get out there because I think more people
yeah,
need to hear it,
yeah,
and that's the guy that hit me.
yeah.
When you're intoxicated in Texas driving a vehicle and you hit a person, not a car, you hit a physical person like he hit me, it's considered intent to kill,
Oh, wow.
right? So you're a felon. Now the judge that was brought up, the judge that he was brought up in front of is known for just cases like this. He just throws them away. He puts them in for 5 to 8 years, and typically there's they don't have any assets or anything, so there's no monetary reward, but they'll pay out like something to the I hate this word, but the victim to me,
Yeah.
right? So I remember talking to the DA and him telling me that's what's going to happen. I'm like, look, that serves no one. I'm not made better. I'm not made whole by somebody else suffering needlessly. So what I asked for was, again, going into the Marines it changed my life, right? So I said, look, I've had deferred adjudication on tickets before, right? Because they would give me some online course to go take, right? And I do that, and all of a sudden better driver, right?
Yeah.
I said, look, I don't know if the legal uh, um, uh, uh, lingo translates perfectly, but what if we give deferred adjudication for this kid to serve a 4-year enlistment in the Marines, and then if he serves that successfully, gets out with an honorable discharge, or enlists, whatever, no longer a felon. Can we do that? And I remember them telling me it was unconstitutional, and I don't understand how that's unconstitutional, but I kept pushing on that. And finally, the DA was like, look, here's what I'll do. He goes, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm going to take it to him and his attorney. And if they say, hey, we would like it as an option, I'm going to push it as far up the chain as I can. And, we'll see whatever we got to do to make this happen. We will do our best to make it happen. I was like, all right, thank you. That's what I'm asking for. He went to them, and the kid was like, nope, not interested. I can't wrap my head around why you would not take that as an option. I can't, man. I can't understand someone who would be like, no, thank you. I'm going to stay a felon, right?
Bro.
Like, instead of taking an option as serving, right?
Yeah.
So,
and to even just think about it, like the fact that you in every right had the right to be like, you know what, no, go be the felon, go to jail, do all that, but you in the kindness of your heart, and just because of your upbringing, like you were talking about your grandmother, your grandfather, just talking about how you were raised, you realized, like you were talking before about the metaphor of the hammer, you realize, like, what is this going to do for anybody? It's not going to do anything for anybody, so why not give this kid a second chance at life? And the kid didn't even want it.
Yeah.
And not even a kid, a grown ass man.
Like, yeah, he was 26 at the time.
Oh my God.
So yeah, and this is where, so I said, look, fine, he doesn't want to do that. Make jail a secondary option. Like, let's put him in some rehab or something. Like, let's get him better, because the way I always put it is, he's a wrecking ball moving through the world, just fucking shit up. Yeah. And I'm about to bring kids into this world. So that if he send him to jail, most likely case, he just comes out a better criminal. Yeah. But bigger wrecking ball, right? Yeah. So I didn't want to do that. Because again, it does nothing for me. Yeah. But I don't know what happened to him. At the sentencing, I remember him saying, and this is just another, I remember him saying, look, he was telling the judge, I want to make it right by this guy. My girlfriend's about to come into some money through inheritance. I will give as much as I can to this guy. So when I had my chance to speak, I was like, look, keep your money. Your money does nothing for me. And that's where I actually got to tell him, you're a wrecking ball moving through this world, destroying people's lives. Stop being a wrecking ball. And I got him a copy of Jocko Willing's book, Extreme Ownership. Yeah. Gave it to him. In all likelihood, he never read it, but man, yeah, I did what I can, and I'm on to help other people.
And that's just, and again, that's the reason why I like doing stuff like this. Because, like, when I talked to the Marine rapper, and I was talking to Topher and DQ, and the reason why I talk to different veterans and stuff like that is because that just speaks a testament of who you are as a person, who your family raised you to be. It talks, all I've heard about is, how wonderful your wife is and your family. And it just talks about, the true man that you are, the father, the son, like you said, brother, and it's awesome to hear stuff like that, because you don't ever hear stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I don't personally, I don't know if I would feel the same way as you. I like to think that I would, but I don't know. I think I'd be pretty tight. But it's just awesome to hear stories like that, man, to hear that you were able to just convey your feelings like that. And then for you to go out and buy him that book, which is a phenomenal book. I've read it. That book changed my life.
Yes, sir.
But, I just think that's an amazing thing. And that's the thing that we're missing, that right there is the missing link that we have in society right now, is that there's not more people like you that are worried about helping other people or moving on to help others, or giving this person, this 26-year-old man, like the opportunity at life, but he chooses the other. So that just speaks a testament to you and your knowledge, to who you are as a person, as an individual, as a family man. So I guess my next question would really be, what are your so you as a as a personal trainer, as a father, like, what's your everyday, like, how do you do all of this stuff together and make it happen? Like, how are you in the gym? Because I feel like every time you're on somebody's Instagram live, you're in the gym doing something. So how do you make all this possible? How do you have the time for your own PT while dealing with the family, while dealing with the kids, dealing with the wife, dealing with the business? Like, how do you marry all that up?
Yeah. Well, Benny, first let me say, look, I'm not a saint, man. There are definitely times where, especially initially, where I was like, "Fuck that guy,"
Yeah.
where when I would see my wife doing something that I couldn't do, I used to,
Mm.
again, all the extra work she had, where I was like, I just want to choke that motherfucker out.
Yeah.
But when it comes to it, and this is maybe why the courts are set up the way they are, and I'm sitting there and I see the guy and I got to look them in the face. The urge is still there to punch him for sure, but again, thinking about society becomes what you are. I forget who said that, but I don't think there's any more true quote, and that's when you get to sit and think about what are the long term effects, and I don't get anything out of somebody else suffering needlessly. I think you would do the same thing, my man. But anyway, to your question, man. So I built the gym in my house. It's so my 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 commute to the gym is a walk down the stairs in the morning. Um, my son gets up and uh, I'll get him his vitamins and stuff, and I'll put him in the bed with my wife, and then they'll sit there, maybe watch some TV, and I'll come down and get my workout first thing in the morning. And then if it's a school day for him, I'll take him to school, come back. I might have some appointments, but at some point, I have some people who come to my gym here. I go to some people's house. I have a lot. I mean, obviously, a lot of stuff's gone online in the past year and a half. At some point in there, I'll take my daughter, and my wife will get her workout in. Um, and it's just, man, it's just kind of living by a schedule. There are plenty of days where I don't want to work out. The bed is comfy in the morning when I sometimes it's the alarm goes off, but normally it's my son waking me up. You know, it'd be nice just to lay in bed, but I got shit to do, man. And even on those, especially those days when I don't want to do it, which this morning was a fantastic one. I have a rule that I tell my clients, and I got to live by it too. I commit to the first 2 to 4 sets. I'm going to go down there, do a little warm up, and I'm going to do the first 2 to 4 sets. And if I don't feel like working out after those, then I'm done. That's all I'm doing that day. But more often than not, that's when the motivation kicks in. After you've exercised the discipline and getting those first couple of sets done, that's when it kicks in. Nobody wants to work out, but everybody
Yeah.
wants the result of working out, right? So
Yeah.
it's also, there's another step that I really don't want to glaze, another process I don't want to glaze over there. It's committing to getting to those first couple of sets. Because again, it's just to walk down the stairs for me. Maybe it's to drive with somebody else. The first thing I got to do is I got to get up. I got to put my shorts on, right? So I do that, right? I got to put my shirt on, unless it's a hot day and I'm, whatever. But there's step by step on how I get there, and just do the next step.
Yeah.
Just do the next step until I'm standing in front of that bar or the
Yeah. Yeah.
dumbbells
Yeah.
or the reverse hyper, the kettlebell, whatever it is that day, until I'm standing there, and then I'm all right. If it's 2 sets today, cool. If I'm committing to 4 sets today, whatever it is, I'm doing those, and we'll see how I feel at the end of it. And again, 90% of the time, maybe more, it's all right. It's go time. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But if I'm not feeling it, man, I listen to that and I'm done.
Got you, bro. I'm gonna try and use that because I don't know. I was really hitting it for like a year, like a real year. I got off recruiting duty. Was busy back with the family, and then all of a sudden, like the past like month, I've just been in this funk of just sleeping in and not wanting to wake up early and not wanting to, bring the kids to school and do all that stuff. And then I'm making excuses as to why I can't go to the gym. And I'm sitting in my garage and I have a bench press, I have a squat rack, I have a pull-up bar. So I can either drive to the gym or I can walk into my garage and do it. And I'm not doing neither. So that's
It
why
sounds like you got everything you need in the garage, man.
bro, I do. I need to. I think I don't know. I think a huge part of it is that I would like I enjoy. I don't know. I like going to the gym, but at the same time, like I feel like if I really wanted to, I could just make it in the garage and just do it that way. I don't know. But that's why I was asking you, like, what is your like day to day, like for people out there who might, because like it amazes me when I see people like you doing like Jack, same thing like Jocko. There's this other guy, Danelle. He works with Jocko. And I think it's JB Danelle. And I follow him on Instagram, and because he was on a podcast, Andy Frisello's podcast, Relay F.
Yeah.
So I started following all these different people because they were on the podcast, and I started looking at it. I'm like, bro, there's people out there who are motivational speakers, who own their own businesses, who have children, who do all these things and still go to the gym every day. So like that's why I ask people like you, like, how are you doing this? Because I in my head, I make it out to be so much harder than it is. Like, because it literally is that simple. Just get up, go do it, and just make it happen. But
So that's the thing. It's simple. It's not easy.
got you.
Right. So you gotta figure out like those steps, right? So for you, where are you at?
I'm in Jersey.
All right. So it's probably colder up there, right? So you've got it like I said, I got to put on shorts. I'm in San Antonio, a shirt. You might have to put on a couple more layers, right? But it's just step by step. Like you got to think about what does that look like for you. And the other thing is, I posted this a few weeks ago, and I'm glad it caught on. Like the best pre-workout is a worthy goal, right? The best pre-workout is a worthy goal, because if you really desire the goal, like if it's something that you're like, yeah, that's what my life needs, then if it's important to you, you're gonna eat well. You're going to have a good bedtime routine. You're going to get to sleep at night because you want to be well rested in order to get up and do that. For me, and there's lifetime goals, long-term goals, and then short-term goals, right? Lifetime goal is I want to be a good man, husband, father, all that. And fitness is part of that. There's mental health is part of that, all that good stuff. But then a long-term goal. I'm 44. My son turns 3 in January. My daughter's 5 months old. So that means when they're in their 18 to 20 range, I'm going to be in my mid 60s. And at that point, I want to take a trip with each of them. I want to go do something with them, hike the Grand Canyon, climb Mount Kilimanjaro, something like that. And if I'm going to be able to do that, I've got to put in the work now. Right. So that's another thing I think about when I'm like, do I really want to work out today? No, I don't. But I'm working toward this. I'm going to be there for my kids when I'm there.
I appreciate you saying that, because that's something like my father is like, you got me thinking back to why I joined the Marine Corps. Because one of the reasons why I joined the Marine Corps, one of my benefits acts was physical fitness. And the reason why was because my grandfather was always heavy set. My uncle, I love him to death, but dudes, I've never seen him not big. He's a big man. My father now, 60 years old, can't get off the floor when he bends over, stuff like that. Doesn't, every time he's moving around the house, all you hear is
Benny, that's you're breaking that generational curse, man.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's why I'm trying to do that. And so now with what you're talking about with the lifetime goal and like I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Hey, let's talk offline after this, man. I want to we'll get something worked out to help you out there.
All right, no doubt. But so that's my next question for you. I guess great transition into that. What how can we find you? How can my listeners find you? What do you offer people? What is your business? How can they find you, whether it's personal training, supplements? I know you have some clothing as well. I think, at least I thought. But
I got
what
I,
do you have
I
out
have.
there for us to okay? What do you
Yeah,
have
so
for us?
my website, Brandon Mancini Fitness, is my training company, right?
Okay.
So my website is BMF Coaching, bmfcoaching.com. You can also just type in Brandon Mancini. It's Mancine. So BMF Coaching is probably the easiest way to find my website. I had a clothing line thing set up on there that's kind of shut down now. I'm reworking that. I'm trying to get that together.
Gotcha.
On Instagram, my personal page is I am Brandon Mancini, but my business page is IAMSUPPS, IAMSUPPS.
Okay.
The website for the supplement line is IAMSUPPS.com, IAMSUPPS.com. But that's where that's the brand that was born out of the accident. And if I could take a minute and kind of explain
Yeah.
the
Yo,
branding
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Let's go.
So first, I am is the two most powerful words in the English language, right? Because what you say after that is your declaration. You know, Jordan
Yeah.
Peterson has that whole thing about don't speak negatively of yourself. So I am, and then where do you go from there?
Yeah.
I'm a good man. I'm a good husband. I'm a good father. Like, you create those statements.
Yeah.
But then it's also to look at the supplement industry and all of these crazy things that are out there. Like I said, the best pre-workout is a worthy goal. My pre-workout is I'll put some collagen in my coffee and I'll drink that, or I'll mix the superfoods formula, take a shot of that. But a lot of they put these complexes out there and supplement. And another thing is they'll say, well, you need this. This is the product you need. Supplement. I'm the only guy in the fitness industry or the supplement industry that says this. Supplement by definition means in addition to. So if you don't have your base nutrition, if you're not eating well, the supplements you take are going to be worth less. They're going to be less effective, right? So I am supplement means it's in addition to your healthy eating. It's intended to fill gaps. But then also what's on the product, what the product is called is what's in the product. So our I am whey protein is 100% whey. Man, I thought it's 100% whey isolate. I thought I was allergic to whey protein for years because I was taking these shit whey proteins that were just cheap and they were messing up my stomach. It's 100% whey isolate, which is the most digestible form of whey, but it's also got a digestive enzyme added in there. So you'll have no gas, no bubble guts, anything like that.
Okay.
And you absorb 100% of it, so it's going into building and repairing muscle. Collagen is type 1 and 3 collagen peptides from grass-fed bovine. It's the most, man, it was such a huge part of my rehab. It goes to strengthening ligaments and tendons. Collagen got really popular for hair and skin and that stuff, and it does help with that. But it's for making you more, less prone to injury, more resilient, right?
Okay.
So through my rehab is another time I got nicknamed Wolverine because I was recovering so fast through that. And then we just launched the superfoods formula, which is a combination of reds and greens. So the last part of it is is all over the labels. You see, I am, and that's a reminder of, like I said earlier, who is responsible for your health and well-being? Well, I am, right?
Yeah.
There's even a spot on there where on each of the products, because a lot of gyms are small boutique gyms where people might have a cubby or a locker, you can write, it says I am, and there's a blank line, whey protein. So you could write, I am Benny's whey protein, I am Benny's collagen, I am Benny's superfoods.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yo, I love it. I love that, man, because like you said, man, it feels like, and that's the thing that too is like me and my wife talk about that all the time. Like, there's so many different, like one person says do this, one person says do this. You want to talk about diet. Okay, well, one person says this is the best diet. One person says this is the best diet. Or once the person says the supplement is the best supplement that you need, and it's like, okay, well, which one is the reality?
Well, so there's no such thing as best. right? It's
Yeah.
so personalized, man, because you it's got to fit your lifestyle. Now, I
Yeah.
will say, like the from the exercise standpoint, simple: squat, hinge, push, pull, right? At lunge, those are movement patterns, right? And what is strength? Those patterns are moving through positions, right? Strength is the ability to hold a position under stress, right? Whether we're talking physically, lifting weights, or whether we're talking mentally and intellectually, does your position hold up under stress, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's that's like the basics in exercise. You keep those, you develop strength in those. That's going to carry you for years.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about before we end this, cap this off, man, is just the I am thing, because I really I love it. I appreciate it. And I'm definitely moved by it, because I was just talking about this on Saturday. I talked a little bit about on my live this morning, but me and my wife, I did an episode over the weekend where I had the ability to meet like 5 or 6 different people that were artists. And one of the gentlemen that was there, his name's Anthony. He is a composer for a band in North Carolina, and he also teaches. And I was doing the episode with him, and my wife was just kind of standing there taking pictures because we couldn't do video. But all of a sudden, mid-interview, my wife just interrupts and she just starts talking, like she just hops in the interview. And it was because she was awed by the way this man was speaking, and awed, and just the way that the two of them connected, because they both work in the schools. And it was just listening to the two of them talk. We're gonna end up doing an interview. It'll be the first interview where it's me and my wife interviewing him. Um,
Nice.
and and it's just awesome because he was talking about how he works in the ghetto, or the inner city. And a lot of the students that he has, he's like, yeah, man, I have students that come to my school and tell me that they're nothing. He's like, I have students that come to my school, like literally tell me that their parents tell them they are nothing, they're going to be nothing. And he's like, these are their parents. And my wife, she's been in daycare, she's been in schools, she tells me stories all the time about the different things that she hears. And even me, like being in the Marine Corps, being a recruiter, I don't know how many times I've had those conversations with parents, like, oh, my son can't do this, or my son can't do that, or you're never going to do that, or you're never going to do that. And it's just like, I just don't understand how, as a
Man.
parent, number one, I don't understand how, as a human being, you can say those things about another person, but I don't understand how, as a parent, you could say that to your own child. And that's why and that's why I want to thank you for doing what you're doing, because especially in a time like this, in a time in which we're living in, we need companies like yours that are going to break against the norm and not just be about, like, GAT sport, okay, or whatever it is. Like, it's not about their name brand. You're talking about, okay, it's about who I am and who you are. So that's awesome in and of itself, man. And I just appreciate that. I can feel everything you're saying. I'm resonating with it. I can feel, and I can tell that you mean best for everybody and anybody, because you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't. You wouldn't have, gladly, accepted my invitation to come on the podcast. You wouldn't have gladly hopped on, and I appreciate you for that. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, just for being who you are. Thank you. I don't know your wife, but tell her I said thank you. I
Will
appreciate
do.
it.
Thank you, sir. Hey, thank you for having me on, man. It's your your whole vibe is infectious, man. I love the videos you put out on Instagram. I just since this invite, I'm most of the time on Instagram. I just started following your YouTube, but
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's you're a great interviewer too, man. Where'd you get those skills?
So I started, so I was so when I was a Lance Corporal, I'll never forget it. So a lot of people don't know this, but my dream was to become an 8412, which is a career recruiter. And the reason for that was because when I was a young Lance Corporal, I'll never forget it. I was going into a school with this sergeant, and was going to the school with this sergeant and this master guns. My bad, Mass Art, and went into the school. It was my first time ever doing anything with recruiting, and I just started going up to people. I was pulling kids up left and right, pulling kids up left and right, and I was getting names and numbers, getting appointments set up, all this stuff. And we leave the school, we go sit in the car, and we're about to walk into a restaurant. And the master sergeant looks through the rear, he pulls his visor down, and he looks through the rear view, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Hey, Bennett." I'm like, "Yes, Master Sergeant." And this is like my first ever interaction with a master sergeant. Like, I don't talk to master
Right.
sergeants. I'm like a PFC or lance corporal. I'm like, "Yes, Master Sergeant." And he's like, "How does it?" And the recruiter sitting right next to him, he goes, "How does it make you feel that you are destroying this sergeant who went to school to be a recruiter and he don't know how to fucking do shit?" And I was like, and I'm not, in my head, I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question because the sergeant's right there. Like, what am I? I was like, it makes me feel great, Master Sergeant. Like, I think that's what I said to him. And then we get out the car, we go to the restaurant. He tells the sergeant, "Hey, I'm not paying for your fucking food. You're gonna pay for Bennett's food because he just got you all your appointments for tomorrow." and and the master sergeant turns around and he tells me, he's like, "Hey man, you're gonna take my job one day." He was like, "You're going to be an 84." And he was the career recruiter at the time for New Jersey, one of them. And he was like, "You're gonna take my job one day." He's like, "I guarantee you one day you're gonna be 8412, you're gonna kill it, you're gonna be a great recruiter." So long story short, I became a recruiter. But in the time of me getting to be a recruiter, I was always around the office. And I guess the edge up that I had on everybody was I was able to listen to people interview people because I was around recruiting duty for like 8 years. So I listened to the really weird dudes who were very, like, I don't want to say weird, but like the people who were introverted but were phenomenal interviewers, but were horrible at being like the guy who went out and got you. And then I listened to phenomenal people who were able to, sell you ice water on a freaking freezing day. Like I got one of my mass sergeants to this day, like just listening to him talk to him, like the way that this man can just articulate anything, it's just like it's a gift. So I was able to just I don't listen a lot, but I would listen to the way in which like the words they would use or the euphemisms or the mental or just all the different metaphors they would use. And then I just started making up my own stuff as well. I created like my own methods on recruiting duty. Some people didn't like whatever. But I just loved it. And I've always been a talker. So I love, and that's another reason why I started my podcast. Like I love just BSing. I love talking about random stuff. Like I'll talk all night, all day. Like bro, I call people. That's why and it's actually the podcast helped me out a lot because I'll literally sit on my front porch. And this is also why I kind of stopped drinking heavily. Because I'll sit on my front porch and 10 o'clock at night until 4 o'clock in the morning, just FaceTiming mad people. And people are like, "Bro, why are you FaceTiming me at 2 a.m.?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, let's talk about something." So I'll just, yeah, man, I love it. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm always talking. I'm talking with my hands. I'm always having conversations with people. And I wanted to really just be able to interview people because, like I said to you before, there's just so many people that, I was on recruiting duty. You hear all the negatives about veterans and you never hear positives. And like, and this isn't a rag on like on vet TV or anything like that. But like, I don't want to say I get offended by that stuff, but that stuff really bothers the hell out of me because civilians really believe that that's a reality. And it's
Yeah.
like, and then it's a
It's the dark
bad,
humor.
yeah, like I get it
It's
for
the dark
us.
humor that stayed in the barracks
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
all that came out. No, man.
Exactly.
I get it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to create something like this because, yeah, of course, bro, 100%. If you got bad times, negative times, I want to hear it, like, because we can't fix those times if we don't talk about them. But my problem is that no, like on recruiting duty, all I ever heard was my uncle was an alcoholic, my father was an alcoholic because of the Marine Corps. Like all I ever heard was all these negative stories. No one ever came to me like, "Yeah, bro, my father's the business owner, and the reason why he's a business owner is because he was a Marine." Like I never heard that. So I was like, okay, well, why not start a podcast, for police to listen to, for families to listen to, for anybody to listen to. Understand where the veterans coming from, understand where the family is coming from. Because that's another thing I want to do, is get family members on to talk about their what they've dealt with throughout service, because nobody ever
Yeah.
talks about that.
No.
We don't ever talk. We don't know that side of the coin. So like, and those are future episodes that I'm gonna do with my wife, about her, her battle with cancer, about all the different things that my wife's going through, while being on recruiting duty. Like, bro, my wife, like you're talking about all the amazing thing your wife's doing. Like, bro, my wife gave birth to 2 children and had 2 miscarriages while I was on recruiting duty. So in the span of 4 years, she had 2 miscarriages, gave birth to 2 children while I was at work. Like, she did all that while I was working, 5 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night, every night.
Yeah.
And she did all that without me. Moved us out of a house and into a house, painted the house while pregnant. Like, she did all of that stuff while I was sitting at work. So, and then helped me with work when I got home so I could be with my son. So, so I definitely understand and feel you, because I've kind of been through a lot of what you were talking about. But yeah, man, that's why I started it. That's where I get the skills from. And also just I've never been a reader. I've never been a reader, but now that I'm trying to make this podcast more of like an everyday thing, more of a career type thing, I'm starting to watch different videos, start reading different books, and learning different possibilities of different ways to do things. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I just love talking. And I think my wife was the one who was like, you should just start a podcast because you love talking to people about stuff. So
It's not just that, man. You're a good conversant. So there are plenty of people out there that love to talk, but they don't have that listening side. You obviously got that too, because great questions.
if you ask me,
Yeah.
if you ask my wife, she'll tell you I don't listen. But you know what it
Well,
is though? You know what it is though. So I'll never forget this. This is what happened. So and I'm actually glad that you asked that question, because I haven't shared this before. So what happened was, I was on recruiting duty, and it was like probably like the first 3 months of being on the duty. And all of a sudden one day I said to myself, I was really bad in the beginning. The bad, like when I actually came to like me having to, like, now that I wasn't like an assistant to somebody and I was really doing this for myself, I wasn't really as good as I thought I was. And it started really affecting me. So one day I was sitting in my office, and it was just me. Everybody had left. And I was like, I called my wife. She at the time, like, we lived like 2 minutes away from the office. So I called my wife. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, babe, can you come over to the office? She comes to the office. I'm like, I'm gonna interview you. So I pull the benefit tags out, put them on the table, and I begin to do a benefit tag presentation. So what is that? I take 11 benefit tags. I don't know if they did this in back in your day, but you
I
take these,
remember that.
yeah. So okay, so it was like that. So we take these benefit tags, and then you tell them, hey, this is what they stand for. This is what I want you to do. I want you to put them put them in order from most important to least important. And then since then I've created all different types of way of introducing the benefit tag. But the most simplest way is how I did it, because at the time I didn't know all these other intricate ways of doing it. So I did that to my wife. And one of the things that some people will teach you, some people won't, but I would, is in the midst of us having conversation, in my head, I want to know, can I pick the 3 for you? In my head, do I know you well enough that I'm going to be able to pick the 3? Like, have I done my research? Have I built rapport enough? Am I going to be able to pick the tags for you? And then would I have been right? So my wife picks the tags, and I can't remember exactly what they were, but I was wrong. I was dead wrong. And at this time, this is 2017. So I was married with my wife for 4 years. And at the time we had been together since 2000, 2009, 2010, like, yeah, 2010 was when we started dating. And so now it's like 7 years I've been with my wife. And it hit me like, bro, I don't know shit about my wife. I'm like, we're married, we're trying to have children, and I'm like, I don't know these intricate things, and I've never taken the time to ask her these deeper meaning questions. So I started to do that. I had the benefit tags in front of me, and I think one of them was like, I think she picked like self-confidence, self-reliance, and I was just like, wow, what does that mean to you? And then for the first time ever, I just sat there in front of my wife and I just listened. There was no one else in the office. There was nobody else around us, and I started listening. And then I realized that all of the time, and my wife was a big part of this, that she helped me realize it, was that a lot of times people, we listen to react. We don't
Yep.
listen to listen. We don't listen to care. We're not actually listening. We're just hearing. So it became more, and that was the thing, is that like I started to get even deeper into the interview process. I started to get even deeper into the diving into it. And a lot of what I used to do when I was on recruiting duties, I don't want to say I would use your words against you, but I'll write things down on a piece of paper or on a board. And then at the end of the interview, when you tell me you don't want to be a Marine, I'm gonna be like, hold on. But you told me you wanted this, and the third. And then you also told me that you can't get it without the Marine Corps. So then why wouldn't you want to be a Marine? And then you're like, but I didn't say that. I'm like, no. I wrote your name on it. Like I put those words down that you wrote. And I said, so I started doing that. And I just got deeper into it. And a huge thing for me, I don't know if I coined this or somebody said this to me, but for me, it became words mean things. And a lot of people say things, but they don't mean them, and especially like young men and women, I want to be successful. Okay, well, hey, what does being successful mean to you?
Yeah.
And then they'll go off the wall and be like, okay, so what's your plan to get there? Oh, I'm gonna go to college. Wait, what? And then what am I gonna do? I'm gonna break down their psyche. I'm gonna break down, hey, why do you believe that? Why do you think this is this? And then I'm gonna try to understand more of that. But yeah, man, I love conversating or conversing or whatever, which one. I love just talking to people, man. And I love, being able to, I'm also a very, I'm a happy dude. Like I'm always happy and I'm always
That's
bugging.
obvious, man.
Like, like I'm always bugging out on things, and I always like the Marine Corps, bro. Like people, and I've had people say this before, you hear, oh, that dude's a motard or that dude's motivated, da, da, da. Bro, I've been motivated my whole entire time in the Marine Corps, and that's just who I am as a person. Like, I yell, I scream, I talk, I just enjoy it. I get happy about music, I get happy about everything. So, and that's what I want to do, man. I feel like there's too many negative people out there. I hate, there was days where I hated being on recruiting duty, but I would wake up and be like, yo, I'm gonna go find someone today. And that's it. And then guess what? Maybe today I didn't find nobody, but tomorrow I'm gonna say the exact same thing. And tomorrow I did. So that day I was right. Like, like
Yeah.
I'm on a, you know what I mean? So, and I think now talking to you and now going through all of this makes me realize that I just got to go back to being that positive. I got to go back to making sure that I'm doing it every day and just
Yeah, man.
getting into it. But all right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you. I really, really do. I really appreciate this conversation. I want to
Likewise.
definitely do more episodes to talk about different topics with you, get into mental toughness, get into different workouts, stuff like that, and just be able to give that opportunity to other people, other viewers. And then anything I can ever do to be of help to you, please let me know. And then for the listeners, please definitely go support him. I'll drop all the links and everything into the description so you guys have that. And then when I upload it on Instagram tomorrow, and Spotify and YouTube, I'll share it to him so that y'all can see him. And please go give him a follow. And again, thank you, man. I appreciate everything you're doing out there.
Likewise, Benny. Thank you so much, man.
Have a good night, brother.
You too.